This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My breath caught in my throat as I stood trembling in the dimly lit hallway of the church, the heavy white gown clinging to me like a second skin, its intricate embroidery scratching against my arms. I'd slipped out of the dressing room to find Shekhar, my fiancé of mere hours, pressed against a bridesmaid, his lips trailing down her neck, his hands roaming with a casual arrogance that made my stomach lurch. The muffled organ music from the sanctuary faded into a dull roar in my ears, drowned out by the sound of my own heartbeat hammering against my ribs. "Shekhar?" I whispered, my voice shaking, barely audible over his low chuckle as he turned to me, his dark eyes glinting with something cold and unapologetic. "You're cheating on me? On our wedding day?" My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms, the sting a sharp counterpoint to the numb disbelief spreading through me. "I'm Ria, 24 years old, a daughter of wealth and expectation, raised in a Los Angeles mansion where every chandelier sparkled with my father's success. I've got long black hair that falls in waves my mom loves to fuss over, hazel eyes that catch the light, and a life that's always been cushioned by money. Designer bags, private schools, a black card I never questioned. But beneath the gloss, I've been restless, searching for something real, something mine. I found it in Chris, a 26-year-old janitor with a shy smile and hands rough from work, who saw me, not my family's fortune. For months he'd been my secret, my rebellion against the world my father, Vikram, built. Now, standing here, watching Shekhar smirk like I was the fool, that world was crashing down around me. "Why so surprised, Ria?" Shekhar said, his voice smooth and cutting as he stepped away from the girl, brushing his suit jacket like he hadn't just shattered me. "This is how it works. Rich guys like me don't settle for one woman. Marriage is a deal, not a fairy tale. Go get ready. Your dad wouldn't want you late." He waved me off, turning back to the bridesmaid, and I stumbled backward, my heels catching on the hem of my dress, my chest tightening with a mix of rage and humiliation. "A deal?" I said, my voice rising, raw and unsteady. "That's all I am to you? Some business move?" My eyes burned, tears threatening to spill, but I blinked them back, refusing to let him see me break. The bridesmaid giggled, adjusting her strapless dress, and I felt the heat of shame crawl up my neck, mingling with a growing fury I couldn't contain. Shekhar's smirk widened, his dark eyes glinting with a cruel amusement as he leaned against the wall, his tailored tuxedo pristine despite the betrayal unfolding in front of me. The hallway's dim light cast shadows across his face, making him look like some smug villain from a movie, and the organ music from the sanctuary felt like a taunting soundtrack to my unraveling life. "Don't be so dramatic, Ria," he said, his voice smooth and sharp, cutting through the thick air like a knife. "You're getting everything you could want. Money, a name, a future. This?" He gestured lazily toward the bridesmaid, who twirled a strand of blonde hair around her finger, her lips pursed in a pout. "This is just how it works. You'll get used to it." He stepped closer, his cologne, a cloying mix of sandalwood and arrogance, overwhelming me, and I stumbled back, my bare shoulders brushing the cold stone wall. "Get used to it?" I repeated, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and rage, my hands balling into fists at my sides. "You think I'll just sit there and smile while you screw around? This isn't a marriage, it's a sham." My chest heaved, the heavy gown tightening around me like a cage, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, a wild drumbeat urging me to run, to scream, to do anything but stand here and take this. The bridesmaid, Kayla, I realized, one of Shekhar's cousins who'd been flirting with every groomsman all week, giggled again, a high-pitched sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, come on, Ria," she said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy as she smoothed her dress, her nails a garish red against the black fabric. "It's not like you didn't know what you were signing up for. Shekhar's a catch. You're lucky he picked you." She smirked, tossing her hair, and I felt a surge of anger so hot it nearly blinded me. "Lucky?" I snapped, turning on her, my voice rising to a near shout. "You think this is luck? Being traded like some stock for his portfolio?" My hands shook, and I took a step toward her, my bare feet cold against the floor, the hem of my gown dragging behind me. "Get out of here, Kayla. Go giggle somewhere else." My words came out sharp, jagged, and she flinched, her smirk faltering as she glanced at Shekhar for backup. "Relax, both of you," Shekhar said, raising a hand, his tone annoyingly calm, like he was soothing children. "Kayla, give us a minute. Ria needs to cool off." He waved her off, and she huffed, sauntering down the hall, her heels clicking a retreating rhythm. He turned back to me, his expression shifting to something almost pitying. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Ria. Your dad's counting on this. Our families are merging empires here. Don't ruin it over some silly ideals. Silly ideals? I said, my voice low now, dangerous. As I stepped closer, my eyes locked on his. Like loyalty? Trust? Love? You don't even know what those mean, do you? My throat tightened, a lump forming as I thought of Chris. His quiet promises, the way he'd looked at me like I was enough. Just me, not my father's money. I gave up everything for this, for you, and this is what I get? You gave up a janitor, he said, rolling his eyes, his voice dripping with disdain. Let's not pretend that was some grand sacrifice. Chris couldn't give you a tenth of what I can. Grow up, Ria. This is the real world. He reached for my arm, his fingers brushing my skin, and I jerked away, my heart pounding with a mix of revulsion and clarity. Don't touch me, I hissed, my voice shaking but firm as I backed toward the dressing room door, my mind racing. You're right, this is the real world, and in it, I deserve better than a cheating bastard like you. I turned, shoving the door open, and stumbled inside, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I slammed it shut behind me. My mom was there, her hands frozen mid-motion with my headpiece, her soft brown eyes widening as she saw me. Ria, Beta, what's wrong? She said, dropping the delicate silver piece onto the vanity, her voice thick with worry as she rushed to me. You're crying. What happened? Her hands hovered near my face, hesitant, like she was afraid I'd shatter. Shekhar's cheating, I choked out, collapsing onto the velvet chair, my hands trembling as I clutched the armrests, the fabric cool against my sweaty palms. I caught him with Kayla, right out there, Mama. He said it's normal, that this wedding's just a deal to make him richer. I can't marry him. My voice broke, tears spilling hot and fast down my cheeks, streaking the makeup I'd spent hours perfecting, and I buried my face in my hands, the weight of it all crashing over me like a wave. Oh, my girl, she said, kneeling beside me, her hands cupping my face, her thumbs brushing away my tears with a tenderness that made my chest ache. I'm so sorry. I know this hurt. I felt it too. Her voice cracked, and she took a shaky breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. 2 days before my wedding, I caught your father with someone else. I'd left Arjun, the boy I loved, for Vikram, forced by my parents. I stayed and it gave me you, the best part of my life. But I was miserable, Ria. You don't have to be. You stayed? I said, pulling back, my heart pounding as I searched her face, confusion swirling with my pain. Why? And why let Papa push me into this if you knew how it felt? My voice trembled, a mix of betrayal and desperation, and I gripped her hands, needing answers, needing something to hold on to. I didn't have a choice, she said, her voice firm now, her eyes fierce with a resolve I'd never seen. My family would have cut me off, just like Vikram's threatening you. But I was wrong to let him do this to you. I thought security mattered more than happiness. I was wrong. You've got a choice, Ria. There's still time. She pulled her phone from her purse, pressing it into my hand, Chris's number glowing on the screen. I texted him the church address. He's waiting. Chris? I whispered, my chest tightening with a sudden wild hope as I clutched the phone, my tears slowing, my breath hitching. You did that for me? My mind flashed to Chris, his warm brown eyes, the promise ring he'd slipped onto my finger months ago, the love I'd thrown away under my father's pressure. But Papa, he'll disown me. I'll lose everything. Not everything, she said, standing, her smile small but fierce. You'll have what I never did, freedom to choose love. Go, Beta, now, before it's too late. She squeezed my shoulder and I stared at her, my heart thudding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The door creaked open, and Lila, my best friend since middle school, poked her head in, her short black hair messy from running, her brown eyes wide with alarm. Ria, what's going on? She said, stepping inside, her sneakers squeaking on the floor. I saw you bolt in here. People are freaking out. Your dad's pacing like a madman, and Shekhar's smirking with some chick. What the hell? Shekhar's cheating, I said, my voice steadier now as I wiped my face, Lila's familiar presence grounding me. I caught him with Kayla, on our wedding day. He doesn't even care, Lila, it's all a game to him. That asshole, she said, her jaw dropping, her hands flying to her hips. I knew he was sleazy, those flirty vibes at the rehearsal dinner, total red flag. What are you gonna do? Her eyes darted to my mom, then back to me, her energy a spark in the chaos. I'm leaving, I said, standing, my gown swishing as I grabbed my phone, my resolve hardening. Chris is outside. Mama texted him. I'm done with this, Lila. Done with Shekhar with Papa's rules. I'm going. Hell yes, Lila said, grinning as she grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. Let's get you out of here. I'll cover for you. Your dad's gonna lose it, but screw him. She glanced at my mom, who nodded, a silent pact forming between us. Go, my mom said, her voice a quiet command. I'll handle Vikram. I hugged her, quick and fierce, then followed Lila out the back, my heart pounding as we dodged the bustling wedding staff, my bare feet slapping the cool tiles. Lila yanked me through the back door of the church, my gown snagging on the frame as we burst into the cool evening air, the scent of jasmine from the garden hitting me like a lifeline. My bare feet slapped against the stone path, the grass damp beneath them, and my chest heaved with every ragged breath, a mix of fear and exhilaration pumping through me. Behind us, Vikram's voice roared, sharp and furious, cutting through the muffled chatter of the guests inside. Ria, stop this nonsense right now, he bellowed, his footsteps pounding closer, his shadow stretching long and menacing across the lawn in the fading light. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't, not when freedom was so close. Keep going, Lila hissed, her grip tight on my arm as she pulled me toward the parking lot, her sneakers skidding on the gravel. He's gaining. Move it! Her voice was urgent, her brown eyes wide with adrenaline, and I stumbled after her, my heart racing so fast I thought it might burst. The weight of the gown slowed me down, its layers tangling around my legs, but I tore at it, ripping the hem free, the sound of fabric shredding a small rebellion against everything I was leaving behind. We reached the edge of the lot, and there he was, Chris, leaning against his rusty blue truck, his janitor uniform swapped for a faded flannel shirt, his brown eyes lighting up as he saw me. Ria, he said, his voice thick with disbelief, stepping forward as I threw myself into his arms, my hands clutching his shirt, the familiar warmth of him grounding me in the chaos. You're here. What's happening? I couldn't do it, I said, my voice breaking as I pressed my face into his chest, tears soaking into the fabric, my body trembling with relief and exhaustion. Shekhar's a liar. He was cheating, Chris. I don't want that life. It's you. Always you. My words tumbled out, raw and messy, and I felt his arms tighten around me, steady and sure, a promise I'd been too scared to trust until now. Your mom texted me, he said, pulling back just enough to look at me, his hands cupping my face, his thumbs brushing away my tears. Said you might need me. I was ready to storm in there and object. I wasn't letting you go without a fight. I love you, Ria. His voice cracked, and I saw the glint of tears in his eyes, the same quiet strength I'd fallen for months ago when he'd slipped that promise ring onto my finger. Ria! Vikram's shout jolted me, and I turned to see him storming across the lot, his face a mask of rage, his suit jacket flapping as he closed the distance. Get back here, you're ruining everything. His voice was a thunderclap, and I felt a shiver of fear, the old instinct to obey tugging at me, but Chris stepped in front of me, his stance protective. She's made her choice, Chris said, his voice firm, unwavering, his hand finding mine and squeezing tight. Let her go, Vikram. There was no pleading in his tone, just a quiet defiance that made my chest swell with pride, with love. You think you can take her? Vikram sneered, stopping a few feet away, his fists clenched, his dark eyes blazing. A janitor with nothing to offer? I'll cut her off. No money, no house, no future. You'll drag her down to your level, and she'll hate you for it. His words stung, sharp and venomous, and I felt a flicker of doubt, the life I'd known flashing before me, the mansion, the luxury, the safety net I'd clung to. I don't need your money, I said, stepping beside Chris, my voice shaky but growing stronger with every word. I need him. Someone who loves me, not my last name. You don't get to control me anymore, Papa. My throat burned, tears threatening again, but I held his gaze, my resolve hardening like steel. Vikram's face twisted, a mix of anger and disbelief, and then Lila piped up, her voice cutting through the tension like a whip. Yeah, and good luck explaining this to Shekhar's family, she said, crossing her arms, her smirk defiant. Whole church saw Ria bolt. Bet that merger's looking shaky now. She winked at me, and I managed a small, grateful smile, her bravado a lifeline in the storm. Before Vikram could respond, another voice joined the fray. Eddie, Chris's older brother, stepping out from behind the truck, his leather jacket scuffed, his hazel eyes narrowed. You're one to talk about dragging people down, he said, his tone bitter as he glared at Vikram. I dated a girl like Ria once, rich family, big expectations. Her dad did the same thing, threatened her till she dumped me, left me broke and bitter. Don't do that to them, man. Let her live. His words hit me hard, a glimpse of what Chris might have faced, and I squeezed his hand tighter, my heart aching for both of them. Vikram faltered, his jaw tightening, but the fight seemed to drain from him as he looked between us. Me in my torn gown, Chris in his flannel, Lila and Eddie flanking us like guards. "You'll regret this," he muttered, his voice low, defeated, as he turned and stalked back toward the church, his shoulders slumped, his empire cracking. "Come on," Chris said, tugging me toward the truck, his voice soft but urgent. "Let's get out of here." I climbed in, Lila and Eddie piling into the back, and the engine rumbled to life, the sound a sweet release as we peeled out, leaving the chaos behind. My chest felt light, free, the weight of my father's expectations lifting with every mile. Let me rewind a bit. 3 months ago, it all started in that foyer, Vikram's voice thundering as Chris stood beside me, his uniform a quiet rebellion against the wealth around us. "What were you thinking bringing a loser like that here?" Papa had roared, his ultimatum clear, Shekhar or nothing. I'd chosen fear then, breaking Chris's heart on that park bench, his ring box snapping shut like a gunshot in my memory. But now, as we drove through the night, his hand warm in mine, I knew I'd made the right choice at last. Weeks later, I heard whispers. Vikram's deal with Shekhar's family fell apart, his reputation tarnished by the runaway bride scandal, his temper flaring as he lost control. Shekhar moved on, his Instagram flooded with new girls, his betrayal a bitter echo. Me? I moved into Chris's tiny apartment, working part-time at a coffee shop, learning to live on love and grit. It's hard, messy, but every night, Chris's arms around me feel like home, a happiness money never bought. Tess's words haunt me sometimes. "You'll regret this." And I wonder if Shekhar's circling back, offering her a gilded cage again. Will she take it? I don't know. I've got Chris, a life I chose, and that's enough. This taught me money's a mirage, love's the real currency, and trust builds it. Vikram's suffering his losses, and I'm building something new. What about you? Think Tess should fight for herself, or is she doomed to chase shadows? Drop your thoughts. I'm still figuring out what's next, and I'd love your take.